liaison officer Kethron stood on the bridge of the Crimson Fang and watched the human ship drift across his view screen. White hull, red crescents painted on every surface. No escort, no weapon signature. A hospital ship. He let his tongue flick against his teeth. The humans called this vessel the HSV Nightingale, a soft name for a soft target. Tactical assessment, he said. His weapons officer pulled up the scan data. Mercy-class medical vessel, standard configuration, crew complement approximately 200, current passenger manifest unknown, no detectable armament, shields operating at civilian grade. Kethron studied the data. The ship moved slowly through the contested zone between hegemony and Terran space. It had no business being here. The humans knew this sector belonged to the hegemony now. They knew what happened to ships that wandered into predator territory. And yet here it was, alone, unprotected. Open a channel, Kethron ordered. The communications officer worked his console. A moment later, a human female appeared on screen. She was old by their standards, silver hair pulled back from her face, eyes the color of deep water. She wore a white uniform with medical insignia on the collar. "This is Captain Miriam Cole of the Terran hospital ship Nightingale," she said. Her voice was calm, flat, like she was reading from a script. "You are addressing a protected medical vessel operating under the Arcturus Convention. Please, state your intentions." Kethron leaned forward in his command chair. "Captain Cole, you have entered hegemony space. Your vessel and crew are now subject to hegemony law. You will power down your engines and prepare to be boarded." The human woman did not react. No fear, no anger. She simply looked at him with those strange round eyes. "I understand your position," she said. "However, I must inform you that we are currently treating wounded from both sides of this conflict, including 17 hegemony soldiers recovered from the Kethra Station incident." Kethron felt his scales tighten. Kethra Station. 3 weeks ago, a Terran strike force had hit the station hard. The hegemony had lost over 200 soldiers. The survivors had been listed as missing. "You have hegemony wounded aboard?" he asked. 17, all in critical condition when we recovered them, all now stable. The human paused. "You may verify this claim before taking any action. I recommend you verify." Something in her voice made Kethron's neck spines flatten. It was not a threat. It was not a plea. It was something else, something he could not name. His grandmother had told him stories when he was young. Stories about the humans, about a freighter crew that held a mining station against a full hegemony battalion for 9 days. They had no military training. They had no real weapons. They had cutting tools and mining explosives, and something his grandmother called spite. "They don't stop," she had said. Her voice had been strange when she said it, almost respectful. Even when they should. Even when any sane species would surrender. They just keep fighting. Kethron had dismissed those stories, old tales from a war that happened before he was born. The humans were soft. They built hospitals instead of warships. They wasted resources on mercy. They were prey. "Boarding parties to Shuttle Bay," he ordered. "Full combat loadout." His executive officer turned to him. "Sir, if they truly have hegemony wounded aboard, then we will recover them." Kethron stood. "Along with everything else of value on that ship. The humans have delivered themselves to us. We would be foolish not to accept the gift." On the screen, Captain Cole watched him, had not reacted to his orders. "I must formally protest this action," she said. "The Nightingale is a protected vessel. We are treating wounded from both sides. An attack on this ship would be a violation of—" "Your protests are noted." Kethron cut the channel. The viewstream returned to the image of the hospital ship. It hung in space like a white bird with broken wings. The red crescents seemed to glow against the hull. Kethron watched as his boarding shuttles launched from the Crimson Fang. 6 shuttles, 60 soldiers, more than enough to take a ship full of doctors and nurses. "Sir," his sensor officer spoke with confusion in his voice, "I'm detecting unusual power readings from the target." "Weapons?" "No, sir. The readings are, I don't understand them. They appear to be coming from the hull itself." Kethron looked at the hospital ship. It continued to drift, harmless. But something was different now. The red crescents on the hull were moving, rotating inward. The white panels beneath them were shifting, sliding apart to reveal darker metal underneath. "What is this?" Kethron moved toward the view screen. His weapons officer went pale. "Sir, I'm now detecting multiple weapon signatures. High-powered magnetic accelerators. The readings are—" He stopped, swallowed. "Sir, those are military-grade railguns. At least 6 of them." Kethron stared at the hospital ship. It was not a hospital ship. The Nightingale turned toward the Crimson Fang. Its hull had transformed. The gentle curves were now hard angles. The sensor arrays had unfolded into targeting systems. The white paint was splitting apart to show armor plating beneath. A medical ship with a Predator skeleton hidden inside. "All hands, battle stations," Kethron roared. "Get those shuttles back. Raise shields. Target that." The first railgun slug hit the Crimson Fang before he finished speaking. The round was a simple thing. 200 kilograms of tungsten, moving at 3% of light speed. It punched through the cruiser's engine block like a needle through cloth. The lights died. The artificial gravity failed. Kethron felt himself floating as the bridge went dark. Emergency lights flickered red. Alarms screamed from every console. "Damage report." He grabbed a handrail to steady himself. No one answered. He looked at the view screen. It was cracked, but still functional. Through the fractures he could see the Nightingale. It was still turning, still targeting. The second railgun volley tore the Crimson Fang in half. Kethron was thrown against the bulkhead. He felt his scales crack, felt heat wash over him as something exploded nearby. The world became noise and fire and spinning darkness. His last thought before unconsciousness took him was of his grandmother's voice. "They don't stop, even when they should." Dr. Yusuf Okonkwo was elbow-deep in alien anatomy when the ship shuddered. The lights flickered. Red warning strips activated along the ceiling. Somewhere in the distance, an alarm began to wail. He did not look up. "Suction," he said. Nurse Chen moved the tool into position. The surgical field cleared. Yusuf could see the damage now. A plasma burn had torn through the patient's thoracic cavity. 3 major blood vessels were severed. The secondary heart was exposed and struggling. The patient was Hegemony, one of the 17 soldiers they had pulled from the wreckage of Kethra Station. His name was Veth Kai. He was 19 years old. The ship shuddered again, harder this time. "Doctor," Chen's voice was tight. "Should we—" "Hold that retractor steady." Yusuf reached for the laser scalpel. "He's got maybe 4 minutes before the secondary heart gives out. We're not going anywhere." Captain Cole's voice came over the intercom, calm as always. "All hands, brace for combat operations. Mercy protocol is now active." Combat operations. Yusuf had heard those words before, on other ships, in other wars. He was 53 years old. He had served as a military surgeon for 3 decades before requesting transfer to the hospital corps. His hands had touched the insides of every species the galaxy had to offer. He had stitched wounds on battlefields while artillery fell around him. He had performed amputations by flashlight in collapsed bunkers. Nothing surprised him anymore. The ship rocked violently. Something exploded far away, deep in the hull. The surgical lights flickered again. "Doctor!" Chen grabbed the table to steady herself. "We need to evacuate to—" "Clamp." Yusuf held out his hand. Chen stared at him. "Clamp," he repeated. "Now." Her hands were shaking. His were not. Yusuf worked in silence. Cut, seal, clamp, suture. The ship around him groaned and shuddered. He heard railgun fire through the hull, felt the deep thrum of magnetic accelerators cycling. The Nightingale was fighting back. Good. He found the severed vessels, clamped them one by one. The bleeding slowed. The secondary heart steadied. Synthetic graft, he said. The blue package. Third shelf. Chen retrieved the material. Her hands were still shaking as she opened it. Doctor. Her voice was barely a whisper. Why are we doing this? Yusuf looked at her. She was young. 24, maybe 25. This was her first tour on a hospital ship. She had signed up to help people. She had not signed up for war. Doing what? He asked. Saving him. Chen looked at the patient on the table. The hegemony soldier. They're trying to kill us. They attacked a hospital ship. They're monsters. Yusuf returned to his work. The synthetic graft needed to be positioned carefully. One mistake, and the soldier would bleed out. Hold the retractor, he said. Doctor, hold the retractor. She obeyed. Yusuf began stitching the graft into place. He thought about Lagos. He did not want to think about Lagos. He never wanted to think about Lagos. But the memories came anyway, as they always did, when the world turned red and loud. The Lagos residential dome had been home to 3 million people. Schools, markets, families. It had no military value, no strategic importance. The hegemony had bombed it anyway. Yusuf had been working at the university hospital when the attack came. He had run through streets filled with smoke and screaming. He had dug through rubble with his bare hands until his fingers bled. He had found his daughter under a collapsed wall, a daisy, 6 years old. She had been wearing her favorite dress, the yellow one with white flowers. He had pulled her body from the rubble with these same hands, these same steady hands that were now saving the life of a hegemony soldier. Doctor. Chen's voice broke through the memory. I don't understand. After everything they've done, why do we help them? Yusuf finished the last suture. He stepped back from the table. The soldier's vital signs were stabilizing. He would live. Because if we stop, Yusuf said quietly, then we become them. Chen stared at him. We are doctors. Yusuf removed his surgical gloves. We do not choose who we save. We save everyone. That is the only difference between us and them. The only difference that matters. The ship shuddered again. The railguns fired. Somewhere out there, hegemony soldiers were dying. And here in this operating room, a hegemony soldier was living. Both things were true. Both things were necessary. That was the human way. Yusuf walked to the window. Through the reinforced glass, he could see debris floating past. Chunks of metal. Pieces of a ship. A hegemony cruiser, torn apart by the Nightingale's weapons. Get him to recovery, he told Chen. I need to prep for the next wave. Next wave? Search and rescue. Yusuf turned back to the operating theater. We just destroyed their ship. Now we save whoever survived. Chen's face went pale. We're going to rescue them? After they attacked us? Yes. But they tried to board us. They were going to take us prisoner. They were going to... Yes. Yusuf began preparing the next surgical station. And now they need help. So we help. The intercom crackled. Medical teams to shuttle bay. Search and rescue operations commencing. Repeat. Search and rescue commencing. He stopped and looked back at Chen. This is what we do, he said. We kill them when we have to. We save them when we can. We never confuse the two. He paused. If you cannot do this, tell me now. I will not think less of you. Chen looked at the hegemony soldier on the recovery bed. His chest rose and fell, alive because of human hands. She took a deep breath. I can do it, she said. Yusuf nodded. Then come. There is work to be done. They walked out together. Behind them, the young hegemony soldier slept. His heart beat steady and strong. He did not know that humans had just saved his life. He did not know that they were about to save many more. Captain Miriam Cole stood on the bridge of the Nightingale and watched the hegemony cruiser die. The first railgun volley had killed its engines. The second had broken its spine. Now it drifted in two pieces, venting atmosphere and bodies into the cold vacuum. Hostile escorts inbound, her tactical officer reported. 2 frigates, bearing 317, ETA 4 minutes. Cole nodded. She had expected reinforcements. The hegemony never traveled alone. Weapon status: all railgun batteries operational. Point defense online. Magazine at 87%. Very good. Cole clasped her hands behind her back. Hold fire until they enter optimal range. The bridge crew worked in silence. They were medical personnel, most of them. Doctors and nurses and technicians who had learned to operate weapon systems because the galaxy demanded it. They moved with professional calm. Cole was proud of them. She was 61 years old. Her hair had gone silver a decade ago. Her eyes had seen things that still visited her in dreams. Before the Nightingale, she had commanded the TCS Relentless, a dreadnought, a ship built for one purpose only. She had been good at that purpose, very good. When she retired, the Admiralty had offered her a comfortable position training new officers. Instead, she had requested command of a hospital ship. Specifically, this hospital ship. Specifically, the Mercy class. People thought she had grown soft, thought the old warrior had finally tired of blood. They did not understand. The Mercy class was not designed by soft people. Captain, her communications officer looked up. The lead frigate is hailing us. They're demanding our immediate surrender. Ignore them. They say they will destroy us if we do not comply. Cole almost smiled. Almost. Let them try. The Mercy class had been designed by people who remembered history. Earth's history. Humanity's long, bloody story of war and sacrifice and betrayal. The designers remembered the Centaur, a hospital ship torpedoed in the Atlantic Ocean during the Second World War. They remembered the medical vessels bombed at Pearl Harbor. They remembered every ambulance targeted, every medic shot, every Red Cross used for cover by enemies who had no honor. They remembered, and they learned. The Mercy class was built to look harmless. White hull, red crescents, civilian-grade shields, no visible weapons. Everything about its exterior screamed, soft target. Everything about its exterior was a lie. Beneath the white paint was military-grade armor plating. Behind the sensor arrays were railgun batteries capable of punching through capital ship hulls. Inside the gentle curves were point defense systems, missile launchers, and a fusion reactor powerful enough to power a small city. The Mercy class was a wolf dressed as a sheep. Frigates entering optimal range, Tactical reported. All batteries fire at will. The Nightingale spoke with 6 voices at once. Each railgun hurled tungsten death at 3% of light speed. The rounds crossed the distance to the frigates in seconds. The lead frigate's shields lasted exactly 1 volley. The second volley removed its bow. The third turned it into expanding debris. The second frigate tried to run. It did not run fast enough. Cole watched the destruction without expression. These ships had come to capture her crew, to take her doctors and nurses as prisoners, to use them as bargaining chips in a war the hegemony had started. They had made their choice. All hostiles neutralized, Tactical reported, detecting multiple life signs in the debris field. Lodge search and rescue. Cole turned to her operations officer. I want every survivor brought aboard. Hegemony wounded go to Medical Bay 3. Process them like any other patient. The operations officer hesitated. Just for a moment. Captain, they just tried to board us. They were going to... I know what they were going to do. Cole's voice was soft, almost gentle. Now they are injured and dying in space. Our job has not changed. She walked to the main view screen. The debris field spread across her vision. Chunks of metal, frozen bodies, the scattered remains of ships that had tried to take her vessel. And among the wreckage, escape pods, life signs, survivors. Mercy protocol exists for a reason, Cole said. She spoke to her bridge crew, but her voice carried the weight of something larger. A doctrine, a philosophy. We do not stop being who we are because our enemies forget who they are. We fight when we must. We kill when we must. But we never stop being healers. Never. She turned back to the view screen. The moment we let our anger choose our actions, we lose. Not the war. Ourselves. Her crew stared at her. Some understood. Some did not. It did not matter. Understanding would come later. For now, they would follow orders. Rescue shuttles away, operations reported. ETA to first survivors, 8 minutes. Medical team standing by, another voice added. Cole nodded. Very good. She walked to her command chair and sat down. The battle was over. The real work was about to begin. In 8 minutes, her ship would be filled with hegemony wounded. Soldiers who had come to capture her crew. Soldiers whose friends and comrades now drifted as frozen corpses in the vacuum. Her doctors would treat them anyway. Her nurses would tend their wounds. Her ship would carry them to safety. This was the human way. Kill when you must. Heal when you can. Never confuse the two. Never let one corrupt the other. The hegemony did not understand this. They saw mercy as weakness. They saw compassion as a flaw to be exploited. They were wrong. Mercy was not weakness. Mercy was the hardest thing a warrior could do. It required strength to destroy your enemies. It required something greater to save them afterward. The Nightingale drifted through the debris field. White hulls scorched with battle damage. Red crescents still visible beneath the carbon scoring. A healer's ship with a predator's heart. Cole watched the rescue shuttles launch into the darkness. Bring them home, she whispered to no one. The work continued. Kethron floated in darkness. The escape pod was small, barely large enough for 2 bodies. He was alone. The other seat was empty and covered with blood. His blood. Half his scales had burned away in the explosion. His left arm hung useless at his side. Every breath sent fire through his chest. Something inside him was broken. Probably several somethings. Through the tiny viewport, he watched the battle end. The Nightingale, that monster wearing a healer's mask, had destroyed both rescue frigates in less than 3 minutes. The railguns fired in precise bursts. 3 rounds, pause. 3 rounds, pause. Each volley tore through shields and armor like they were paper. Kethron had studied military tactics for 20 years. He had never seen weapons used with such cold efficiency. No wasted shots, no emotion. Just death, delivered with surgical precision. Now the hospital ship drifted through the debris field. The remains of the Crimson Fang and her escort fleet. 300 of his crew were dead. His ship was gone. His career was over. And the humans were launching shuttles. Kethron pressed his face against the viewport. The shuttles spread out through the wreckage. Search patterns. They were looking for something. For a moment, he thought they were hunting survivors, finishing the job. That would make sense. That was what the hegemony would do. Then he saw the first shuttle stop beside an escape pod. Saw the docking arm extend. Saw the pod pulled inside. They were rescuing survivors. Kethron did not understand. He watched as shuttle after shuttle repeated the process. Pod after pod was collected. Wounded hegemony soldiers, pulled from the wreckage by the same humans who had just killed their shipmates. A shuttle approached his pod. He felt the docking clamps engage, heard the hiss of atmosphere equalizing. The hatch opened. A human stood in the doorway, male, young, wearing medical whites with a red crescent on the shoulder. He carried a trauma kit in one hand and a scanner in the other. He looked at Kethron, at the burned scales, the useless arm, the blood pooling on the floor. "Holy hell," the human said. His voice was calm, professional. "Okay, buddy, we're gonna get you out of here. Can you move at all?" Kethron stared at him. This human should hate him. Kethron had ordered the attack on his ship, had sent soldiers to capture his crewmates, had tried to turn his colleagues into prisoners of war. The human should want him dead. Instead, the medic knelt beside him and began running the scanner over his injuries. Fractured ribs, collapsed lung, second-degree burns across 40% of your body. The human pulled supplies from his trauma kit. "I'm gonna give you something for the pain, then we're moving you to the ship. Stay with me, okay? You're gonna be fine." "Why?" The word came out as a croak. Kethron's throat was raw from smoke and screaming. The medic looked at him. "Why what? Why are you helping me?" The human paused. For a moment, something flickered across his face. Not anger, not hatred. Something Kethron could not identify. "Because you're hurt," the medic said, like it was the simplest thing in the world. "That's literally my whole job." He pressed an injector against Kethron's neck. The pain faded. Warmth spread through his body. He felt himself lifted, carried, moved through the shuttle and into a larger space. The medical bay of the Nightingale. Kethron had expected a military installation, cold metal, armed guards, cells. Instead, he saw beds, clean white sheets, medical equipment humming softly, nurses moving between patients with practiced efficiency. And the patients, dozens of them, his soldiers, lying in hospital beds, being treated by human doctors. A female nurse checked vital signs on the patient next to him. She spoke to the hegemony soldier in gentle tones, adjusted his medication, made notes on a datapad. The soldier had lost both legs in the explosion. He would never walk again. And a human was caring for him like he mattered. "Easy now." The young medic helped Kethron onto a bed. "Dr. Okonkwo will be with you soon. He's our best trauma surgeon. You're in good hands." Kethron grabbed the medic's arm. His grip was weak, but the human stopped. "I don't understand." Kethron's voice was barely a whisper. "We attacked you. We tried to take your ship. We were going to—" "Yeah." The medic gently removed Kethron's hand from his arm. "I know what you were going to do." "Then why?" The human looked at him. Young face, tired eyes, no anger, no triumph. Just a weariness that seemed too old for his years. "Because this is what we do," he said. "We fight, we win. Then we save whoever's left. That's how humans wage war." He walked away. Kethron lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling. Around him, human doctors and nurses worked to save hegemony lives. Soldiers who had been enemies an hour ago were now patients. He thought about his grandmother's stories, about the humans who didn't stop fighting even when they should. She had been wrong. It wasn't the fighting that made humans terrifying. It was this. This impossible, irrational mercy. This refusal to let hatred win, even when hatred made sense. This ability to kill with one hand and heal with the other, without seeing any contradiction. The hegemony understood predators. They respected strength and cunning and the will to destroy. They did not understand this. A doctor approached Kethron's bed. Old human, dark skin, steady hands. He wore surgical scrubs stained with blood, hegemony blood, from the look of it. "Why?" Dr. Okonkwo was quiet for a long moment. Because the day I stopped saving people, he said finally, I stopped being who I am. He returned to his work. Kethron closed his eyes. He understood nothing, but for the first time in his life, he wanted to. 3 days after the battle, the Nightingale limped toward Terran space. Her white hull was scarred with carbon scoring. One of her railgun batteries had been damaged by debris and hung at an awkward angle. The red crescents were still visible, but barely. She looked like what she was, a ship that had been through hell and survived. Captain Miriam Cole stood in her ready room and watched the stars drift past. A hegemony diplomatic vessel had made contact an hour ago. They demanded the return of prisoners taken during the engagement. They used words like illegal detention and violation of military protocol. Cole had responded simply, "We have no prisoners. We have patients. They will be released when they are healed. This is not negotiable." The diplomats had threatened. Cole had ended the call. Now she waited. Her door chimed. "Enter." Commander Harris, her executive officer, stepped inside. His face was drawn with exhaustion. None of them had slept much since the battle. "Ma'am, the hegemony diplomatic vessel is requesting another conference." Denied. "They say they'll report this incident to the Galactic Council. They're claiming we attacked their ships without provocation." Cole almost laughed. "Their ships were boarding a hospital vessel. I have full sensor recordings. Let them make their case." Harris hesitated. "Ma'am, there's something else. Some of the crew are concerned about what this means. For us, for other hospital ships." Cole turned from the window. "Go on. If word gets out that Mercy-class vessels are armed, every medical ship in the fleet becomes a target. The hegemony won't honor the Arcturus Convention anymore. They'll shoot first and claim self-defense later." Cole nodded slowly. She had thought about this. For 3 days she had thought about almost nothing else. That's exactly what will happen. Then why? Because the alternative was worse. Cole walked to her desk. "The hegemony already targets our medical ships. They bomb hospitals. They shoot ambulances. They've never honored any convention when it suited them to break it." She sat down. "The only thing that's changed is that now they know there's a cost." Harris stared at her. "Every dictator in history has targeted medical personnel," Cole continued. "They do it because healers are soft targets, because mercy is seen as weakness, because nobody shoots back." She leaned forward. "Now, somebody shoots back." In the medical bay, Dr. Yusuf Okonkwo sat beside a bed and waited. The patient was Vethkai, the young hegemony soldier from the operating table, the one Yusuf had spent 4 hours putting back together while the ship fought for its life. Vethkai was awake now, had been awake for a day, did not look at anyone, just lay in his bed and stared at the ceiling. Yusuf understood. He did not try to force conversation, did not offer empty comfort. He simply sat, present, available, waiting. After an hour, Vethkai spoke. "My ship." Yusuf nodded. "The Crimson Fang, yes." "How many survived?" 47, including you." Vethkai closed his eyes. His throat moved as he swallowed. "I am 19 years old," he said. "I joined the military because my father served. His father served. Every male in my family has served the hegemony for 6 generations." Yusuf listened. "They told us humans were weak, soft, that you would surrender if we showed strength." Vethkai opened his eyes. "They told us your hospital ships were easy targets." They were wrong. "Yes." Vethkai turned his head to look at Yusuf. "Why did you save me?" It was the same question Yusuf had heard a dozen times over the past 3 days. From soldiers, from officers, from enemies who could not understand why they were still alive. "I'm a doctor," Yusuf said. "I save people. That's what I do." But I am your enemy. You are my patient. Yusuf met his gaze. There is no difference. Vethkai was quiet for a long moment. My people will call this a trap, he said finally. They will say you saved us to use us, to extract information, to break our spirits. Perhaps. Is that why, to break us? Yusuf thought about his daughter, about Lagos, about the yellow dress with white flowers. He thought about the rage that had lived in his chest for 15 years. The rage that still lived there, banked but not extinguished. No, he said. We save you because the alternative is becoming something we cannot live with. He stood. The surgery was difficult. Your body needs time. He walked toward the door. Doctor. Yusuf stopped. Thank you, Vethkai said. The words seemed to cost him something. For my life. Yusuf nodded once. Then he left. On the last day before the prisoner transfer, Kethron requested a meeting with Captain Cole. She granted it. They met at a small conference room. 2 chairs, 1 table, a viewport showing the stars. Cole sat with her hands folded. Kethron stood, his arms still in a sling, his scales still healing. You wanted to see me, Cole said. I need to understand. Kethron's voice was steady, but something underneath it was not. I have been a soldier for 20 years. I have fought in 11 campaigns. I have seen cruelty and mercy and everything between. He stepped closer to the table. I have never seen anything like this. Patient. You killed 300 of my crew. Kethron's jaw tightened. You destroyed 3 ships. You did it without hesitation, without mercy, with perfect efficiency. Yes. And then you saved us, his voice cracked. You pulled us from the wreckage. You treated our wounds. You gave us beds and food and medicine. You saved soldiers who had come to capture your people. Yes. Why? Cole was quiet for a long moment. She looked at this broken officer, this enemy, this person who had ordered the attack on her ship. Because the day we stop saving people, she said, is the day we lose the war. Not to you, to ourselves. Kethron stared at her. I don't understand. I know. Cole stood. She walked to the viewport and looked out at the stars. Your people see mercy as weakness. You think compassion makes us soft. You think our hospitals are vulnerabilities to exploit. Our mercy is not weakness. It is the hardest thing we do. It takes more strength to save an enemy than to kill one. It takes more courage to offer a hand than to make a fist. She walked toward him, stopped an arm's length away. We fight because we must. We kill because sometimes there is no other choice. But we never stop being who we are. We never let the war turn us into something we would hate. Kethron looked into her eyes. Old eyes, tired eyes. Eyes that had seen death and chosen life anyway. You will return to your people, Cole said. You will file your report. They will not believe you. They will call you a liar, or a fool, or a traitor. That is not my concern. She turned away. But perhaps late at night, when you are alone, you will remember this. You will remember that we could have let you die. We didn't. She walked to the door. Safe travels, liaison officer. She was gone. Kethron stood in the empty room. Outside the viewport, stars drifted past. The nightingale carried him toward freedom, toward home, toward a world that would never understand what he had seen. He looked at his hands, healed by human doctors, fed by human nurses, kept alive by the same species his people had sworn to conquer. He did not understand, but he would remember. For the rest of his life, he would remember. The Nightingale reached Terran space at dawn ship time. Her hull was scarred, her crew was exhausted, her medical bays were still half full of hegemony wounded. But she flew on, a white ship with red crescents, a healer with a warrior's heart. Behind her, 47 hegemony soldiers carried a story they could not explain, a paradox they could not resolve, a memory of enemies who had killed them and saved them in the same breath. Ahead of her, more battles waited, more wounded, more death, and more mercy. Always more mercy. That was the human way.